Yeah.
Hi everyone, welcome to this week's Future Net Zero Insight with me, Kieran Bowes. Today I'm joined by Elliot Coad, the founder of Ecologi. How are you doing, Elliot?
I'm really good. Thank you very much, Kieran. How are you doing? You okay?
Yeah, not too bad, thanks. As we were just saying before we sort of started, it's nice to meet people remotely, getting used to that, unfortunately, these last couple of years.
Yeah, very. We kicked off Ecologi pretty much just before lockdown, and so we were too small, so we're just in our own houses, and then lockdown, and so I'm actually kind of coming out of this now into the real world slowly, having never been out there. So it's very exciting.
Sort of stepping outside the bedroom.
Yeah, exactly. It's a bit like when, cows or sheep are let out onto a new green grass field, they're all springing into the air. I feel a little bit like that.
So, can you just let us know what led to you setting up the business and what inspired you to make that environmental change?
So my background is technology, so I've been making apps and internet services for a little while, and I was on my commute, on my daily commute. I was buying myself a coffee in the morning, just like, as I'd done. I like to calculate as it was like over 2,000 times I probably bought myself a nice coffee. But I've been this environmentalist for a long period of time, and armchair environmentalist. I think of myself as someone who just cares but isn't out on the street constantly doing something about it. I do look after my carbon footprint, but I was just thinking, what's a real simple thing I could possibly do to contribute more? And I realized that if I was to take the money that I'd be spending on one coffee's worth a week and put that into funding climate action, I could, in theory, offset my entire carbon footprint using the highest available certified carbon offsets, as well as planting like 140 trees internationally, like Madagascar and Mozambique a year. I was just blown away. I personally felt I could do so much more for on a personal level. But then it gets really exciting when you think about what if everyone else joined into that simple action. Could you
Sure.
have like a Spotify or Netflix one day where you have a subscription to reverse climate change? And so that's how it started just a couple of years ago. And I guess that impact's starting to add up too. So we've got 20, maybe 30,000 subscribers now.
Wow.
And we're now funding 3 to 4 million trees being planted every single month. And it's just absolutely astonishing. And it's not just trees, that's about half of where the money goes, and all sorts of climate action is happening as well, all sorts of climate solutions.
How do you offset carbon? So, let's say for someone, as you're saying, if we all do our bit, it makes a huge difference. As a company and as someone that was just sitting there having a coffee and thinking, I wonder what I could do to kind of make a difference environmentally here. How do you offset carbon and what is it specifically that you guys do at Ecologi?
What we really like when we're funding a climate solution is to fund a project that is going to prevent carbon from going in the atmosphere, of course, but also potentially improving the ecology, improving biodiversity too. There's so many nature-based climate solutions that give you this two-for-one deal, improving the wildlife situation, which arguably is as bad as the climate situation. So when we're planting trees, those trees haven't offset anyone's carbon footprint anytime soon. They need to do a lot of growing. Although our mangrove trees, they do grow very quickly, but they're not instant. So that's kind of an investment in the future. Uh, and then we fund all sorts of other climate solutions, which have already been essentially reported to have shown that they've done the thing that they were saying they were going to do. So if we fund a wind turbine or wind farm, for example, over the last year or few years, that wind farm will have already generated such amount of clean electricity, meaning there's a lot less fossil fuels going into the kind of the energy mix. And so we can kind of take that action over there and then take your own carbon footprint. And in theory, they nullify. We don't like to say it just completely nuked it. You still have a carbon footprint and you should be doing everything you can about lowering it. But it's a real neat way of spending a bit of pocket change. And it's incredibly powerful.
It seems quite a daunting task when people bring up climate change, and it kind of, it's gained this reputation as something that's a bit overwhelming. But obviously, everyone can take part in what you're saying and with your website as well. As more people, normal everyday people, see other people that they might know of or even look up to taking climate action, I think it normalizes it. And You've done a bit of work with some musicians, so if you wouldn't mind just touching on that and seeing, we've seen Coldplay announce they were going to do a sort of sustainable tour for their next show. Um, is this something that's changing in kind of the wider media, and how has your collaboration been with them?
It's been really interesting. It's not how we set out. We wanted to create a subscription that reverses climate change. And then what we ended up building was something that could be used by all sorts of artists and businesses in the world. And so we've seen interesting opportunities come up where others can fly the flag for climate action and we can help out. So within the music industry, we've seen Liam Page from his One Direction days and a couple of bands like Passenger be able to kind of tether some climate action with the action of going to a gig or downloading an album, for example. Planting trees in the UK and in Australia, depending on what's kind of geographically makes sense for them. And as you were saying, that people don't know where to get started. And often when you do get started, there's momentum there and it feels easier and easier to keep on moving. And so when like those artists I just mentioned, and they find out you planted a couple of trees as the action of attending a gig, for example, you feel just a little bit more connected and a little bit less disconnected. And we see it time and time again where people just start with a small action. It may even just start more like locally. For example, you might just get involved with like a local park cleanup, and then that just might put you on a journey of kind of ecological responsibility. And so it's not obvious where it's going to end up, but it's so powerful. Any action, any small action, ultimately was likely to be leading to something bigger and bigger. So it sends massive signals, not just the music industry, but was it EastEnders or Emmerdale that was talking about the major
Yeah,
climate
yeah.
conference, COP26? It's like, that's absolutely fantastic. The more we could normalize the fact that climate is the most pressing and permanent issue or semi-permanent issue that we have. Yeah, these signals are strong and they're so handy.
I was going to say as well, I think, as you've said, your kind of the money that you would have spent on a coffee, what would that contribute to sort of fighting climate change? For people that aren't thinking about, putting their hand in their pocket to help the climate, if there are things like musicians saying, if you buy my album, I will plant a tree. I mean, you're doing what you were going to do anyway, and now it's having a positive impact elsewhere. So I guess that's kind of an easier way to go, you know what, I can make this change. And it's the same with
Yeah.
business. We've seen a lot of businesses now in their kind of sustainability strategy. It's at the forefront of what they're trying to do. And I guess with what you guys are saying with planting trees and sort of offsetting your carbon, are you seeing businesses also take that stride to kind of keep customers on board as well?
Oh, for sure. It sends we're talking about signals. And so when a business aligns themselves with your own values, my value is like, I bloody love the planet and I want to see it survive. If you see another business that looks to be doing the same, it's got a real gravitational pull to it. And I think, we're seeing a real shift now, more and more companies. It feels a bit like jumping on the bandwagon, but we should also be very supportive of companies making this action. And sometimes these are big juggernauts that just need a little time to kind of make that directional change. But every time you buy anything or you're voting with your wallet, as they say, it's if you're buying that T-shirt and you can check out their ethical credentials, then what you're doing is just feel slowly, but everyone is accelerating that transition to that sustainable planet that we need to. So, we have 10,500 businesses using Ecologi now in lots of weird and wonderful ways. For example, there's a game from a studio called Us Two. They made great games like Monument Valley, and there's a really neat game called Alba, and it's about this lovely kind of young girl who's an environmentalist. So it's like a photographer, nature photographer, and you just go around this world learning about nature. It's amazing. It's so brilliant. But every download of the app also plants an actual tree, and now there's over 1 million trees like planted because of that single action. And it's great for their values, but also it's it gets more attention than it does if it was just, without this kind of added value. So, Alba and amongst other businesses that use this do stand to benefit. There is this economical or profit element that you can, if you're aligned with green, then your business should be doing better overall. So it's good for your own bottom line too. So it's becoming a business's survival thing as well. If you're not on the right side of history, then people will think of you as essentially killing the planet that we're on. And that's why we're seeing a big clamoring of businesses at the moment.
Yeah, it's definitely taking off, and there's definitely been more interest following COP26. That was kind of a big point of talk with the media as well. What are the plans for the future with what you're doing then? Because obviously you said, was it 30,000 users that have subscribed to your platform?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, certainly over 30,000 members. And so it's really exciting. You mentioned COP26 just then. So I came back from COP26 and I just felt, well, I spoke to a lot of people and a lot of scientists, and there's a certain status quo that needs to be kept, that we've got 10-ish years to really change the course. But the more people you speak to, maybe it's more like 3-4 years to really, really decarbonize our economy. So when we came back, we were thinking about the software that we were building or the tools that we were building. How can we not just allow one business or one person to lower their own impact, but also to really be able to onboard all of your own social networks and then also kind of business peer networks too. So, for example, if you're a small business, like I don't know, a little photography agency, and there's only 2 people in it, then your own emissions can be reduced, and that's great. But it's likely that that business has lots of suppliers, and that business has lots of suppliers, and da 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 da. So we're building a piece of software and a platform called Ecologi Zero, and Ecologi Zero is a platform to automatically understand your business's carbon footprint. But really excitingly, it allows you to rapidly introduce that to the rest of your supply chain, and then their supply chain, their supply chain. And the whole idea of it is to quite quickly map the world's businesses' carbon emissions, because we don't have 10 years to kind of go, oh, I signed up to that 1 year, and then we just don't
Yeah,
have that time.
of
And
course.
so, yeah, we're really pushing on this kind of this idea that hopefully can sweep through, where every business understands their carbon footprint and makes their net zero pledges essentially.
If people want to find out more about how they can make an impact and about ecology in general, where should they go?
Absolutely, come check us out. So ecologi.com, ecology with an I on the end instead of a
With
Y.
an eye,
And
not the study.
that's it. Yeah, yeah. Learn about that. Hopefully that's all good. But yeah, come to us as well. Thank you very much.